In this video, I will show you how to create the animation of the ruler, as you can see on this GIF image that I've prepared for you. And for this example, we will take the case of the gear hardening. As you can see, here is the gear contour and the hardening that's showing up. So let's recreate this exact process in ParaView together. Here I have my gear. I have the time annotation in here that I added, and I set it to the end time so we can see how the final hardening will look like. So I haven't added any rulers yet. Let's do that together. For that, I'll just navigate to the end of the hardening profile and I press Ctrl 1. And I navigate to the other end of the hardening profile that I'm interested in and press Ctrl 2. If this doesn't work on your computer, you can just simply drag the arrows anywhere you would like. But for me, it works just fine. And I press Ctrl 2, and I'll just double check if it touches the very edge. Yeah, seems to be quite decent. And now I wanna just make a final touch up, and I want to make this line vertical and like straight, so we can see how it changes only in y direction. So I'll just, as you can see, like here we have the columns, and this is the x, y, and z axis. As you can see below here, it is written accordingly. So I just wanna copy this value. For that, I'll just press Ctrl A to select the whole number, and I press Ctrl C, and I enter it. I press Ctrl V to enter it for the second point. And as you can see, it is a straight line now. And for the z-axis, I need to change these two values to 0 because I want to have that over here. Oh no, actually it could remain 0, not 0, 1, as you can see in here, as I prefer to use this plane. But they also have to be the same for both of the points, so we do not have any extra incline in here, as this does add some some values to the ruler, but we're only interested in the hardening growth in y direction. And also just wanted to say that these values over here, so this is the y-axis, the second column that we're interested in, and these values are the numbers of how far from the origin the point is. So the origin, if we, let's say, put 0 in here, so you can see that it went all the way down over here. So here is the origin, and if I return the value that I had before, I just press Ctrl Z in this box, and I press enter, and it goes all the way back. So we have the 0.055, and this is the number of how far the point of the ruler is from the origin. So that's how this thing works. And now if we go to the initial time, you can see that the ruler still remained at the same spot, which is not what we need since the hardening haven't even started. So we need to open the animation view. For that, we go to the view panel. We check the animation view. This is not the filter, it is just a toolbar that we check or uncheck to appear. If you just close it accidentally, do not worry, you can always reopen it. It doesn't really change anything. And as you can see in this animation view, I already have one animation span, which is my time annotation. As you can see, this does change depending on time. So that's why one animation persists in here. And what we need to do is add the ruler animation, since in this case the hardening starts from the very edge and going down below. We do not need to change both of the points, we just need to change the below point, which was our first point, to grow respectively to the hardening. So for that, we need to select from all of these things that we have in the browser. We select the ruler one, and in here you can see it suggested you the things that you are able to change depending on time, which is the visibility, opacity, and all of these points. This might be a bit confusing in the beginning, but here you can see our um, points in three axes, which is y, x, and z. X, y, and z. According to this panel, it goes in the same order. And for the second point, it is x, y, and z. So we're interested in the first point in y-axis, and we press the plus button, and we've added it over here. So let's just double click on this span over here, and now you can see that it has preset two values at the initial time and the end time. So at the moment, since the ruler doesn't change its size depending on the time, um, it doesn't change anything. So we need to change this value. So the ruler is still not here, but we do not need to change that to 0, as I showed you before, it just goes straight to the origin. We will change the size of this point so it touches the edge, and then it will slowly start growing down below. So we will just copy this value from the second point, which is this one. So we'll just double click, we press Ctrl A, Ctrl C, and we open this one, and then we press Ctrl V, and we paste this value from the second point. We press OK. Nothing's changed yet because you need to go forth and back in the time step to see if something's changed. And now you can see that it has changed. And if we press play now, you can see that interestingly it started growing itself, which is not what we need right now because the hardening does not start until around 2.5 seconds. So we double click on the span again, and we change the interpolation of the animation. So we have a few different options of the interpolation. The ramp is the one where the size of the ruler changes depending on time as a straight line on the graph. So basically it just grows normally. Then it can grow also exponentially and sinusoidally, but for that you need to know the exact power of how fast it will grow, which is sort of painfully, so we will not use that. So we will only use ramp. And for the 0, we will just change the interpolation to the step, which means that it will remain 0 until we make some changes. In this case, it will remain, it will be, say, this value until 5 seconds where the value changes. So it will not grow by itself. So we press play, and you see that it just remains in here nicely. We do not need to change anything yet until the hardening starts. So we need to define the time step where the changes start, which is, I think it is 2.6. Yeah, it is 2.6 seconds. And, oh, sorry, just misclicked it. And as you can see, at 2.6 seconds, it starts changing. So for that, we need to set the ruler to become changing, as since it is not 0 already, it is some little value, but it already started to change. So we go to the ruler, and we sort of need to guess the value right now, since you cannot use the drag option for the ruler anymore once you enter the animation view. So at the moment we had 0.059, so we need to manually change that to something like 5/8 maybe. So it's just okay. I see that this is a bit too much of a change, and this is all you need. You just like press and guess the value. This is the only way I could find how to do that, I'm afraid. So 0.05589 works. So we did add a little change to the initial value. Then we double click on the span, we press new, we change the time to be 2.6 when the change starts, and we enter the value that was suitable for us. So now what we can see is that until 2.6 it remains 0, and then it starts growing since we put the ramp interpolation, but it doesn't grow that nicely. You can still see that there is a little gap sometimes appearing, which is not ideal. So we will still change this to some of the values. You do not have to change the ruler at every time step since it is still growing, it still has the ramp, but we need to split the time step to, we sort of make a few more milestones till which the ruler will be growing normally, and that does really help. So for example, in here I can still see a tiny gap, but I will add the new milestone only at 3.1 seconds and see how this goes. So I already have some of the values saved, so I will save some of the time for the recording, but I can affirm you that it doesn't take a lot of time to guess the correct value, so I just press enter and see that this one works. So I copy that, I add the new ruler value at 3.1 seconds, and I enter it over here. So now if we go back to 2.6 seconds and I press play, I can see that it is already growing nicely, and the gap that we had, for example, at 2.9 seconds that I show you below, it has disappeared because the ramp, the growth now is happening not from this value to the end value, but only from this bit to this bit, which ensures a better accuracy, which is really great that you don't have to repeat the whole process for every time step. It just like some jumps around where you see that this gap becomes like bigger than it should. So I will change, and I will add another milestone around 3.8, which will be something like 5, 7, 6, 7. I'll just I've added a little accuracy because it seems to be growing fine, but I just want to ensure that it looks better than ever. And I've added it, and just let's see what's happening. Oh, you don't need to change the time over here. You can just like simply drag this thing to the time step that you're interested in. And we can just see how it works right now, and if we need to add any more milestones. Yeah, this works perfectly fine. Yeah, for now, if you understood how this works, you can already turn off the video, but I will just show you how to create, I will just repeat the process, but for this hardening zone, which interestingly starts from the center, but it's basically the same process, but you just need to change both of the points, not only one, because it starts from the middle and it is growing in both y directions, in this one and in this one, as you can see from this. So you will need to change both the points. So to do that, I will just close the animation view for now so I can navigate easier. So I add another ruler and I go to the last end time, I press Control 1 for the first point, press Control 2 for the second point. I change this one to 0.01, and I change this one the same way as this is for the z-axis for this plane for the gear, and I just copy this value for the x so it doesn't change in the x-axis, giving us the best accuracy for y direction. And then I go to the animation view again, and for the ruler 2 I need to add 0.1, which is the point below, and I need to add the second point in y direction as well. So now we need to work with both points since it is growing. So I will need to define the starting value first, and that should be around ish. I guess it will be, oh actually the thing that we can do is just set this two values to 0. We will change it to step, and we will change this one to step, and we will change this value to 0 as well. So it kinda will start at this point. It will just show 0 at the origin, but it doesn't matter since both of the points will just jump up to this place again when we need it to jump. And I believe it is 3.3 seconds. Yeah, that should be about it. You can see there is a little hardening that is starting. And we will change some of the values to 6, 2, let's say 7-ish, 8, to make sure it is in the correct. Yeah, you need to always make sure that it is in the correct plane as well. If I set it to 9, it should be about that. And the second one, a little bit more. Yeah, that should be it. And you just change the point number 2 to be this value at 3.3, and you change this value to be at 3.3, and you just repeat it for a few milestones. As I mentioned before, as you can see, it doesn't really grow this much, so I will just change that for oh, I see why it's not growing. It's just decreasing because I didn't put it correctly. So I'll just need to It's quite interesting how it works. But nevertheless, I will just add a few values for 3.5-ish. Let's just play around and see if this works. Not ideal, but good enough. Yeah, fortunately this is quite a manual process that you need to work with by like typing and guessing, and it's not always as nice, but the result is massively satisfying. Okay, and then we will change it at 3.8. We will I'll change that to 0.653 and 0.585. Okay, let's see what's happening now with hardening over here. This one is more confusing than I thought. Okay, there was a bug or something. I've seen that. It just starts growing for some reason. This one is a step. Oh, okay. This one should be ramp. And this one, the first one, has to be step, so it doesn't grow from the origin to this place, but instead it just starts over there. Okay, I can see that it's getting better. Let's change it at 4 because there is like quite of a leak. Oh, and you can actually change that manually. Right now I didn't know about that. That is quite good since we change. Yeah, but this value is also changed, which is not as good, so I prefer manually typing, but maybe you will find this useful to do this way. It is up to you. But yeah, it actually helped me to find the right value, so thank you for that. This one is at 4. And we will change it last time, I guess, in here, and I will just type the value that I have found before. And this one was 0.0575. Okay, perfect. So we will enter one over here, 4.2. And we will enter another one in here at 4.2 seconds. So let's see how this works and if we need to change it or add any milestones. Okay, I see the problem. I think I misplaced those, and that's why at this place you see like it has reached the correct value and then it sort of goes back and changes the points. So all I need to do is just to copy and replace these two values, which is not a big of an issue, but I apologize for not being really attentive. Let's see what's happening now. Okay, that seems to be perfect. Now, if you are willing to get rid of some of the decimal points, that's just like super optional. You can change this to 2, so it will have like 3 decimal points, and for the first ruler you might want to change this thing to 2, so it has something like that. And also sometimes I prefer a different format of 0.3f. This is a standard printf label format, which is easier to understand rather than the G format that it had before. because in here it has 2 and 6, which is like super confusing. Instead, we'll just put 3f, 0.3f. 3 corresponds for 3 numbers after the decimal point, and that's is basically all you need to know. And if you press 7 in here, for example, sometimes it can just like jump your number to the left or to the right, but you don't need to do that. And if you change the value after the decimal point to 8, for example, it will just give you 8 numbers after the decimal point. But I'm good with 3. It looks neater now, so I can close the animation view. And yeah, now everything works as I've discussed. And I hope this wasn't way too complicated for you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And once you finish, you can always save the animation by clicking on the file and pressing save animation, so it does save the whole hardening and movement of the rulers for you. Thank you and have a good day.